She asked me for a couple of seconds.
This here. Did we have our first spill?
Huh?
Did we have our first spill?
I did, yeah, of course. It was me.
Than me. It's typical of me. They're still yeah, mine's been.
Okay.
You are. That's what we're actually
See yourself.
Good evening.
Hi.
So I'm Rick George. I'm the chair of the Klickitat County Democrats. And I would like to say that we're pleased to see so many of you giving up some time on a Monday night to learn about one of our Klickitat County candidates for sheriff. So thank you for being here. I'd also like to acknowledge, where are they sitting? I'd like to thank in advance the candidate we have with us, Skamania County Sheriff Sergeant Garique Clifford. And also would like to acknowledge his wife Nikki and daughter Grace, who are with us this evening. I also would like to thank especially the leadership team that put together this event. They put in many hours developing the format and the questions and refining them and incorporating some questions that some of you have in the audience submitted in advance of this event. So with me, with us this evening is Becky Miles and Lynn Mason, and even though he's not here, Don McDermott. So big credit to them. Thank you for organizing this. This evening's event brings back some good memories for me. I was the principal here at Nickel Middle School for 11 years. 3 times a year, our students would be gathered in these bleachers, just like you are, except they'd be pulled all the way out and they'd be packed, to listen to speeches from other students who were seeking their votes to represent them on the student council. And it was a great experience. The candidates sometimes had really creative and witty speeches. Sometimes they were pretty ordinary. The people in the bleachers had candidates they preferred and candidates they didn't prefer. Some of the students that were running were popular among their peers, and some were relatively unknown. But what I especially appreciated about our students was the respect that they showed for all of the candidates. It was special to see. I really appreciated it. And parents who came here to watch their children give a speech came away from the event impressed with our students' conduct. I was proud of our students when I told them that. And I know I'm certain I'll be proud of all of us tonight. I just got a good vibe. Got a good vibe. And because we're going to elect a sheriff, and the passions are high in our county about that. But we've got this. No worries. Just a review about our expectations this evening, though. There will be. I don't have to worry about silencing my phone because my wife has already called and left a message with somebody here that I left my phone at home. But if you have your phone with you, and your wits are a little bit better than mine about such things, it's time to silence them. And then we're going to also have respectful listening. And for us this evening, respectful listening means that we're not going to call out questions or comments, and we're just going to listen quietly. We'll probably hear things that we agree with, and we'll probably hear things that we don't agree with, but we've got this, as I said. So, are we good to go? Let's get started. Here's Lynn. Lynn's going to be our moderator this evening.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for being here today, Sergeant Clifford. The questions for this event were generated from the three of us organizers collaborating to address the most pressing issues regarding our sheriff's office. We also asked the audience for their questions and have included a few of those as well. To keep our event on time, each question is approximately 5 minutes for the questions and answers, and you have approximately 4 minutes for your answers. Timekeeper will raise a yellow card when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining. Red card will be raised when time is up. Our questions and answers will go for approximately 1 hour. Afterwards, we will have 30 minutes for the meet and greet. So let's get started. Welcome, Sergeant Garique Clifford.
Thank you.
Many people want to know more about you. Before we get into the more specific questions related to the sheriff's role, could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hello this evening. My name's Garique Clifford. I grew up in Northern California, and when I was a small child, we moved to Vancouver. And when I was a teenager, we moved back here to the Gorge. I've lived in Klickitat County most of my adult life, and I graduated from Columbia High School here in White Salmon. I started out of high school working. I had many jobs even before high school. I had a paper route. I had, a few different things. But I started working out of high school at SDS Lumber Company. Toward the end of my 7 years there, I started to go to school at night at Columbia Gorge Community College, and I venturing after a criminal justice degree. I had some friends on the police department and the sheriff's office, so I decided to apply with them. I applied to 3 different agencies, and Benjamin White Salmon Police Department hired me in 2003. I went to the police academy and was on the road in beginning of 2004. And I worked for the Benjamin White Salmon Police Department for about 2.5 years, at which point I moved over to the Skamania County Sheriff's Office. I continue to live here in Klickitat County, but I've worked over there. I've had a lot of good people that I've worked with and helped supported me, including my family. In 2018, I became a patrol sergeant with the sheriff's office. I manage a patrol team. I help manage the property and evidence room right now. I help manage search and rescue. And I work a lot of hours. And I thank my family for forgiveness when I'm gone so much. When I, in 2022 here, I saw that Sheriff Songer was retiring, and he put in his announcement that he would like young blood in the office, and he was having health issues. And I saw someone apply, my former opponent, Tim Neer, and I saw kind of a void, and so I decided, I want to serve the community where I live. In 2014, Sheriff Songer swore me in as a special deputy for Klickitat County because I'm over here often enough as I patrol the northwestern lake area of Skamania County, as I travel through Trout Lake to go to Skamania County, as I live over here. I would be in Klickitat County often enough where I might have to take enforcement action. A couple weeks ago, there was a change in events, and my opponent dropped out, and Sheriff Songer stepped back into the race. I still feel that I'm a great candidate for this position. I've been doing law enforcement for just shy of 19 years, and I have a lot of experience, and nothing like Sheriff Songer, but I hope that I continue to gain that experience. I have a lot of supporters, along with my sheriff's office and my old police department, as well as within the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office as well. I know a lot of them. We do a lot of investigations together. I also work with the Hood River County Sheriff's Office as well. We're often helping them in Cascade Locks. I think relationships is a big part of working with the community, all relationships involving all law enforcement agencies, but also other branches of government as well, such as the health department, anything else as well. So that's a little bit about me. And turn it back over to you.
Okay, moving along. We're going to get into the potatoes now. The Sheriff's Office has the biggest budget at $4 million and one of the largest staff of all the county departments. What do you feel are the most important leadership skills a sheriff must have for this job, and why?
I think a big leadership skill that a sheriff and his deputies must have is one is communication. You need to be able to communicate with outside agencies, other departments, as well as your own staff. You have to be able to communicate with the public. You have to be involved with the media so that you can tell the story of the sheriff's office. Another leadership skill that a sheriff and his deputies should have is relationship building. You need to be able to, along with communication, you need to be able to relationship build. It's with, going to people's houses. Every time I go to someone's house that I've never met, I'll go in, I'll treat them with respect as we start out. Sometimes it doesn't always end up that way. That's the way it is with law enforcement. I try to treat everybody with respect when I start out, and oftentimes it ends that way. When you must build relationships with every agency you're working with and every person you're working with, all the way to include the courts, the prosecutor's office, the judges, and also other county departments and then other agencies. You have to work together with them so they can help better serve the citizens and visitors of the county. Because oftentimes, it's not just the residents that live here that are involved with the police department. It might be the visitors that are coming to hike or that are just driving through. And so those are two of the biggest leadership skills that a sheriff needs or a police chief.
What are the key issues currently affecting the sheriff's office, and how do you plan to address these issues?
I think not only with this sheriff's office, but I know my sheriff's office in Skamania County and most sheriff's office across the country. These past 2 years have been hard on all of us, to include law enforcement. And one of the things that is affecting every sheriff's office is training. Sheriff's offices and police departments haven't been able to go get outside training. And training is a major issue with law enforcement and their engagement with law enforcement, the engagement with the community. We had just started this year, been able to go to outside training. There's a couple of my team members that had to go to Idaho for training because Idaho was open and Washington wasn't, and Oregon wasn't. And so that's how it started. But now that most of the training's opportunity is open this year, we've been sending a lot of deputies to training, and it really helps their morale, but it helps them know what to do in every situation, especially with these changing laws in Washington and across the nation. Training is absolutely imperative for law enforcement. You need regular, updated training. And there's now new mandated training for all law enforcement, to include Washington State. We have regular mandated training, crisis intervention training every year, Holocaust training. We have, it's a plethora of mandated training that we're required to do. A lot of it is online right now, but I think I've done online and personal training, and I believe that personal training benefits the deputies and officers the best. Another issue, like I've talked about in the previous question, is communication. I think there's a lack of communication sometimes in some departments, not necessarily the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office, but if you're more engaged with the community and you have regular information put out there on Facebook and other social media sites from the department to the community, they feel more engaged. They're able to respond to you. They're able to provide tips to you if you're looking for something. Something I like to do is when we're looking for a suspect and we haven't identified them, I'll put that information on our social media sites because law enforcement won't recognize that person, and I'll put them out there. Every time it's been amazing. The community comes together and helps us solve that crime or identify that person to help us make contact. And it's not always just a criminal. It could be a missing person or something like that. As long as you're engaged with the community, they can help us. Law enforcement officers and the office itself need the community's help to police. That's a fact. If we don't have the community's help, we struggle. And so
Okay. The sheriff's position is a nonpartisan position. We want law enforcement to do their job and not play politics. How do you plan to stay neutral and serve all of the residents of Klickitat?
Well, actually, in the state of Washington, the sheriff's office, the sheriff's position is a partisan office. It, in the county, in every county, it's a partisan office unless you're a charter county, and you elect it not to be like King County. How am I going to serve the citizen? I'm not a very political guy. I keep things to myself a lot. I like to study and research. So I don't personally like to be on the news or anything like that, but I know that as the sheriff of an agency or the police chief of an agency, there are times when you have to do that. And that's, sometimes when I'm running a search and rescue mission, the news media will show up and I will have to give a statement of some sort, or my sheriff will call me about something and he'll say, Garique, I need you to make a statement to the news media. And it's something that I don't really enjoy doing, but it's something that I can actually get more comfortable doing. And if I get to know them and have a personal relationship, I think it'll be easier as time goes on. And I do like to interact a little bit on social media, especially for law enforcement needs in the community. And will you ask a question one more time?
I asked, we want law enforcement to do their job and not play politics. How do you plan to stay neutral and serve all of the residents of Klickitat County? Because, there's kind of a divide between west and east here. So how do you plan to serve everyone here?
There's a little divide between the east and west, but there doesn't need to be. And, as sheriff, you need to work with everybody. It's very important to work with everybody. And so not only the needs of the community, but also the visitors as well, because we have a lot of visitors that's come in here, and a lot of people that don't even live in this country come here and visit. And oftentimes I'll run into them on the trail, hiking the Pacific Crest Trail or something in this community camp. And sometimes they speak just a little English, and you just gotta work with every situation and try your best to communicate and help whatever situation you're asked to help with. And sometimes we're there to enforce laws, but we're also there to help the community as well. It's sometimes different situations, and that's one thing I love about law enforcement. I come to work, I do not know what I'm going to do that day. I might be going to someone's house to help them. I might have to go arrest somebody. I might be on a boat in the Columbia River. I might be in a helicopter for search and rescue. I love the variety of law enforcement, and it is it's a very fun job for me, and I very much enjoy doing it.
The Washington State Constitution says that the sheriff is the chief executive officer and conservator of the peace of the county. Local elected officials and health department staff experience real threats, personally and to their families. A Black Lives Matter mural was vandalized on private property, and women, children, and students were intimidated at peaceful BLM rallies. How will you, as sheriff, protect our communities from extremist activity that threatens our right to free speech and assembly?
I think, I take the First Amendment very sacredly, Um, I'm regularly involved in people's rights, as I'm oftentimes have to take them away when I take them into custody for some type of law violation. And so I have to be mindful. I have to be mindful when I'm searching people, when I'm searching their residence for anything like that. So I'm very cautious, and I use a lot of checks and balances. I run the information by my peers. So involving like free speech and assembly, whether I agree with it or not, it's still free speech. And so everybody has a right to do that, as long as they're doing it peacefully and as long as they're doing it lawfully. So it doesn't matter. We've had different rallies down in Stevenson, and I've also been aware of rallies in Hood River and Benton White Salmon of different subjects, different issues that people are having. And so I really have no problem defending anybody's rights to that, as long as they're doing it lawfully. And, we saw in the news often down in Portland where that was not done lawfully. Some of it was, but some of it wasn't. And I know the Portland Police Bureau, who I know officers there, were very frustrated that they weren't able to enforce those laws with people violating the law down in Portland. But I do believe in free speech as long as you're doing it lawfully within the laws and within the Constitution. It doesn't matter what group you belong to or what other organization you belong to. That's where I'm at as a law enforcement officer.
The cardinal rule of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment is that government must not take any action that communicates endorsement of religion. Instead, it must maintain governmental neutrality between religion and non-religion. Violating the Establishment Clause has been an issue in Klickitat County Sheriff's Office. How will you ensure there is a separation of church and state in your role as sheriff?
Excuse me. I don't notice, I haven't noticed any type of Establishment Clause violation by the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office. I know the deputies and the sergeants and the sheriff, though he does speak sometimes of certain religions and stuff, and I believe in God. I pray often during my work to myself. I pray that when I'm going through a volatile situation, that people's hearts will be softened. And one thing that I have the unfortunate duty of doing often as a law enforcement officer is telling families that their loved one has died. And oftentimes when I'm at that house or I'm out in the woods with them on a search and rescue, they ask me to pray with them, and I do. But I don't do it as a law enforcement officer. I do it as another human. And if that's some type of Establishment Clause violation, then it is. But I'm going to continue to do that. When someone is in need of that, I will help them. Just like I would help go shovel snow or do anything else. I do it as a human versus a law enforcement officer.
Okay, this is a long question, but here we go. What is your position on ghost guns, assault rifles, purchase requirements, and Second Amendment sanctuary counties? And the second part of this question is an audience question that was sent in. Thank you, audience. Their question is, there were 3 gun-related laws passed by the Washington State Legislature this past session. Number 1, the state law prohibits the sale of gun magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. It will not be lawful for citizens to be in possession of these magazines. Number 2, this law expands the definition of untraceable firearms, and by 2023 will ban the possession, transport, or receipt of homemade guns or firearm components that lacks proper serial numbers. And number 3, this law prohibits open carry of weapons at public meetings such as city councils, school board meetings, and local government buildings, including election-related facilities. All weapons, including concealed pistols, will be forbidden from ballot counting centers. How will you enforce these laws?
Can I hold that? There's a lot of
Yeah, I
questions.
know.
There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions in that one. You know, I was told I was only going to get 12 questions. And then they stacked them up within questions.
It's the same topic.
It is kind of the same topic. You know, in regards to ghost guns, and in this question, it's called assault rifles. I just call them rifles because rifle. That's what I believe. I don't have any issue with those because they're legal right now. Also, people don't realize in dealing with property and evidence, there's a lot of firearms out there that are old and they don't have serial numbers. They were never required to have serial numbers, and they're modern firearms, and they're nothing new that built or what the media calls ghost guns or anything like that. So right now, because they're not illegal, I really don't have an issue with them. What I do have a problem is if someone uses them for violent crimes. And as sheriff, you need to address that. But as part of the criminal justice system, it then needs to be further addressed when someone commits a crime with a gun further down the road at the prosecutor's office level and at the judge's level. I do feel that at the prosecutor level around the state and at the judge level around the state, they are lax on gun crime. I regularly deal with gun crime, even down in Skamania. As more drugs come across the border, and there's more drugs in our community, with the dealing of those drugs come guns, and they're hand in hand, and they're regular around what I deal with. Oftentimes, the people that are committing those drug crimes by dealing drugs are unlawfully possessing firearms, or they're stolen firearms. And so we have to deal with that all the time. Whether it's a ghost gun or an assault rifle or a pistol or anything like that, that is, they're committing a crime with the gun. And it's not just mere possession, unless they're unlawful possession, if they're a felon or they're convicted of some other violent crime where they're not allowed to possess a firearm, or if they have a mental illness and they're not allowed to possess a firearm. In regards to the purchase requirements, you know, there's some new laws in regards to purchase requirements in regards between the ages of 18 and 21, which is kind of odd to me because, you know, you can go to war at 18, you know, why can't you go buy at 22 or something like that, you know? And so I do think there's a lot of conflict involving gun laws and the Constitution, both Washington State, the U.S. Constitution. And so the courts are supposed to shake that out, but oftentimes it takes a long time for that to happen. And so my job as sheriff is to enforce the laws, but, you know, you start with enforcement by education, you know, most of the time. You know, when you all were stopped for a traffic violation of speeding, you know, your first time, you probably didn't get a citation. You got educated by the officer or deputy. And so I recently had an encounter with a subject who sold a firearm to someone who's prohibited. And They didn't go through a pistol transfer form or a federal firearms dealer. Okay, so how did I proceed? I'm sending the information to the prosecutor's office, and and they're going to decide how to proceed with that enforcement action. But I did educate him. He was unaware that he had to use a pistol transfer form and go to a firearms dealer, because if that would have happened, he would not have been able, the person that was prohibited from buying the gun would not have been able to do so. He would have been rejected at the store. And so, that's the reason for the law, but there are a lot of laws that conflict with the Constitution. And it's my job to work through those and seek legal counsel from my county attorney, from the state attorney, and also the U.S. attorney if I need to, and then other sheriffs and police chiefs. Yeah, these decisions are heavy decisions to make, and you got to weigh them carefully, because with discretion comes great responsibility. And you have to know that as a sheriff, a police chief, or deputies, or officers. Go to the next. This isn't really a question, but the Washington State prohibits the sale of gun magazines that hold less than 10 rounds. Well, that really won't apply to law enforcement, because we're not selling magazines, and it is legal to possess them that are over 10 rounds. So anyone that owns one can have one. And so it's really a non-issue for the sheriff's office or the police chiefs within Klickitat County or the state of Washington. The law expands the definition of untraceable firearms by 2023. It will ban the possession, transport, or receipt of homemade guns or firearm components that lack a serial number. So I think the legislature is giving plenty of notice to people, in regards to firearms that don't have serial numbers. And but I know that some of these laws conflict with the Constitution, but I need to be wary of that, because everybody, just like we talked about free speech, the Second Amendment allows people to keep and bear arms, right? And so you have to be cautious when you're enforcing these laws that maybe conflict. And so I need to seek legal counsel. And that's what I plan to do.
Thank you.
Okay, so this question is about constitutional sheriffs, and was the topic of most of our submitted audience questions. Are you a member of the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association? And if so, would you enforce all state mandated laws, regardless of your personal interpretation of the Constitution? And our audience question is, if elected, will you pledge not to join the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association?
I'm not a member of that organization. I don't know too much about it. I've never really I never really got the opportunity to know about it. Oftentimes I'm busy working or being with my family. I don't belong to a lot of other organizations. I don't belong to the Lions Club or the Elks Club or anything like that. I'm often serving my community. And so I do belong to a few training organizations, like FBI LEDA, Law Enforcement Executive Development Association. I belong to the Washington Homicide Investigators Association. And I also belong to WACOPS, the Washington Council of Police and Sheriffs. Those are all, the last one, WACOPS, is a legislative organization, and it helps communicate with the legislature of the state of Washington, with police chiefs and sheriffs and members that belong to them, letting them know that what kind of troubles police are having in their community and how the legislature can help with that. I'm not opposed to learn. I can't say if I'm going to join the organization or not. I'm not opposed to learning about all kinds of subjects. I love learning. I love history. And so I look forward to learning more about the Constitution Sheriff's Association. But I'm not a member.
The Klickitat County Sheriff's Office Posse, a self-described community policing program that started as 50 members and was originally a citizens neighborhood watch group, now has over 151 members, including some members who did not even live in our county. There is concern over the sheriff's ability to manage a small army of untrained, inexperienced civilians carrying their own firearms and working in a quasi-law enforcement capacity. There's also concern over the lack of transparency about the posse. If you are elected sheriff, do you plan to continue the posse program? If yes, how do you plan to manage the posse? How will you minimize liability to the county? And we had an audience question about this. How will you ensure the posse represents all of the citizens of Klickitat County, including those of different political persuasion, gender, religion, people of color, etc.? How will you ensure the applicants be protected from disqualification and/or discrimination? And I'll leave that question.
Thank you. I'll start with the last question first. I've been around Sheriff Sonder. I've listened to him talk, and he promotes the posse and invites any community member to become a member of the posse. I've not heard otherwise in that regard. I'm not a member of the posse. I don't know too much about it other than what I hear from community members. So I'd like to learn more about it before I really make any decisions about it. I know they do a lot of good things. I see them out at the fairgrounds. I see them, they're volunteering their time. I mean, at minimum, along with other search and rescue organizations, other volunteer groups, search and rescue. I work regularly with Klickitat County Search and Rescue. They help me often up above Trout Lake. And I know Mr. King fairly well. We've communicated a few times, and he's actually helped me with search and rescue before. But in regards to the posse, I think I need to learn more about the posse and how it's managed. I know that there's not a sergeant or another deputy that manages the posse. The sheriff does it himself. I do believe, and at the Skamania County Sheriff's Office, we have one of our deputies is a volunteer coordinator. And I'm also a search and rescue coordinator. So along with my partner, Detective Schultz, we manage the search and rescue group at the Sheriff's Office. I do believe I would bring in a volunteer coordinator, one of the deputies or one of the sergeants, to manage the posse, because as sheriff, my main focus would be the department. I got to manage my full-time staff and deputies and make sure they're provided with training. But but I know the posse is important part of Klickitat County and has been for a number of years. And I know some people disagree with some of the things that they do. I don't know everything about them, so I think I need to be more involved with them so that I can decide if changes need to be made. And that's what if I'm elected sheriff, that's what I plan. I want everybody in the community to enjoy the volunteer groups that work at the sheriff's office. They should be promoting positive things and helping the community in any way they can. And I know that the posse does that sometimes. I do hear stuff but I don't know that for a fact. I've never been involved in a negative experience with the posse, though some people might have, and people might share it with me. And if that is the case and I'm sheriff, I'll make sure that that negative experience is changed into a positive experience. Let's see if there's another question here. How will I minimize the liability of the county involving the posse? Well, involving any searcher or any volunteer group or person that works at the sheriff's office, you can't put them in a position where they're not trained. If they're in a position where they're not trained, that's not fair to them, because something serious could happen. That's not fair to the family, and that's not fair to myself or the county or the taxpayers of this county. Just like I would never put a search and rescue person over a cliff that wasn't trained in ropes. That would not happen under my watch. I will not put a posse member or any other volunteer in a position where they're not trained.
Okay, let's see how we're doing. The current wildlife protocol in place in Klickitat County, established by Sheriff's Honor, has resulted in 28 cougars killed in approximately 2 years. And according to Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, this is significantly more than should be responsibly harvested. Additionally, only 5 were actually reported to Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Do you plan to follow this program? What role do you think the sheriff and posse should play in controlling the bear, cougar, and bobcat populations in Klickitat County? And how do you plan to work in partnership with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife?
The predator control issue in the county is important to the residents, the farmers, the livestock owners, and the visitors as well. In some areas of the county, it's not really an issue. In some areas in the county, it is an issue. And so the sheriff has to be part of that. I have a great partnership with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I have their home phone numbers. I can call them at any time, day or night. Right now, I work with them all the time. I'm actually friends with them. So I have no issue working with them side by side. I have no problem using hounds to kill a cougar if there's an imminent threat. Some of you might know, some of you might not. I used to own goats, and they were here up at the school, and my children go and feed them. And they went up there one Saturday to feed them. They're part of FFA, and 3 of my goats were killed, along with 2 others that belonged to someone else. At the time, there was a sporting event going on at the school. My baby goat was buried a short distance away, so we knew the cougar was going to come back and to get it, and that puts other children that are feeding animals at risk, and that also puts the children at the school at risk. I felt it was an imminent threat, along with the Fish and Wildlife and the Sheriff's Office and the a cougar dog team. They found that cougar and they killed it. Since then, we haven't had any issues at the school. I felt that was an imminent threat, and it was appropriate to do that at that time. Since then, also, the school has enclosed their animal area so that during the day it's open. And at night, they put them away so that there's no chance that that can happen again. But I will work with Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're the experts. Until the county government across the entire state funds deputies, Fish and Wildlife deputies, the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife Enforcement is needed, and it's needed for the community. And they don't come out of Olympia. They're here. They're community members. I know them. I know where they live. I can go to their house, and they live here with us. And I'm friends with them, and I know that we can work well together, as I already do now.
The U.S. Constitution uses the term people or person rather than citizen to identify people's constitutional rights in this country. These rights apply to everyone physically on U.S. soil, whether or not they are a citizen. What is your position in regard to undocumented residents and us?
Well, if I'm elected sheriff, and even now as a sergeant, I'm considered a state officer. And we have no enforcement authority over immigration, federal immigration law. So if I come across someone who's here undocumented, it really, unless they tell me, I usually don't even know. And so I have no authority over that. Now, I do, as a sergeant, I do work regularly with federal agencies, the ATF and the FBI, and the State Department I've worked with. Also the U.S. Marshal's Office. If immigration, well, let me back up. If immigration and customs enforcement has an important job in this country, most of that job is done at the border or ports of entry. But if they came to me as sheriff and they needed help with trying to enforce the law, I would help them any legal way, any legal means necessary. I provide the resources if I can legally can. And so that's fine.
Our health department received verbal abuse and undue pressure during the pandemic. The pandemic is not over, and other variants are on the horizon, as Europe and Asia are currently getting hit hard. How do you plan to handle this global crisis on a local level and to help support and coordinate with our health department?
In my current position as patrol sergeant, I have had many meetings with the health department in Escamilla County. Mostly in regards to mental health issues. Mental health is a huge issue involving law enforcement, which I hope it wouldn't be, but it is. It's people and families call for help. So there's I have a great and working relationship with our health department, and I don't see any reason that I would not transfer it over if I'm elected sheriff. Most of the people are pretty smart and engaging, and they're not involved in law enforcement, so they're pretty interested in what I do, and I'm interested in what they do. You know, involving the virus. You know, though the question said it's still pretty heavy, but I don't know. When I'm around the community, you know, some people are wearing masks and some people are a little more cautious, but some people aren't, and that's okay. I don't have a problem going into a store that wants everybody to wear a mask. I put one on. It's really a non-issue. It's just like I'd wear a shirt or shoes in the store. you know, if they wanted me to. It's kind of a non-issue, you know, it's okay. But I just, if I build that relationship, if we have that relationship with the health department, and then we come into some type of issue down the road, like another pandemic or something else, maybe there's some type of something health related where health and law cross. I'm sure we can work out some issues because, they don't, as a healthcare worker, you're not going to really know what the law is in regards to how the sheriff's office or police chiefs would be enforcing things and whatnot. But I think if we establish a relationship and have good communication, we can have meetings and then we can decide at that point how to proceed.
Okay, so this question has to do with established Klickitat County Sheriff's Office policies, and this is our last prepared question. There has been a precedent set in this county that the sheriff politicizes himself with polarizing TV interviews, establishes controversial policies and proclamations, personalized road signs, partisan trainings, religious gatherings in uniform, etc. Do you plan to follow this lead? What will your leadership as sheriff look and sound like?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's why, one of the first questions was maybe the county's divided a little bit. Though some people might find it polarizing, but some people might find it exciting. I'm just going off the cuff here, but some people enjoy that, and that's fine. You just gotta learn to live with it and take it to stride. I'm not one to be in front of the camera very often. I know that sometimes I am. I don't like to be out in public very much, though I am all the time at my work. I'm, go to businesses and I'm in uniform and I'm go to people's houses that I don't even know and I strike up a conversation. But I guess if you're a little more neutral and inviting, you get a little more conversation with people. I think it helps, even if you disagree with them, if you have a conversation with them. And like some of the stuff I said here today, you all might not agree, and I expect you not to agree with it. And that's absolutely fine. But let's have a conversation about it, and we can walk away with maybe a little understanding from each other's point of view. And I think that's how I want to operate as a sheriff if I'm elected here in this county. That's how I operate down in Skamania County. I manage a patrol team and I engage with them. And I have to run them, I might not be sure about something because I've never been a sheriff before. And I know a sheriff does different things than a sergeant or a deputy. And I sometimes don't know everything. So I'll ask the young guy that just came out of the academy, hey, what do you think about this? Because he might have learned something that I didn't know. They often ask me questions because I'm their supervisor, but I learn more from them usually than they learn from me. And I think that that's an important aspect. Even though they're young and brand new, you still need to find an opportunity to pull them aside and say, hey, what do you think about this? It might be a real serious situation too. But I want their point of view before I make a very important decision. And that's what you need to be, you need to have open communication. I think communication is huge in most organizations. And you need to be open with your staff, you need to be open with the community. On occasion, you're working an investigation, you have to be kind of quiet about it. You can't talk about it too much because it'll hurt the investigation. You're open to the public. But once it's over, it's okay. I think you can open up about it. And, I can't say that I won't be on TV or do some type of interview that people aren't going to disagree with. But, I'm not, right now, I don't plan to do that. but I'm sure I'm going to be on TV. Who knows? I hope not. I hope my under sheriff or chief criminal deputy is on TV, and I can help them before they get there. So, and so I think that's about it. I'd like to thank everybody for coming in today. I hope I've answered most or all of your questions, and I'll be around for a little bit if you guys want to engage with me about anything. And but I'd like to thank the staff that opened up and Mr. George for providing this opportunity. A little ahead of schedule, so not even the filing deadline yet. And we still could have 5 more candidates, so could have waited a couple more weeks, but I don't know. But, I'm not, but I'd like to thank you. And I have been, I prefer to engage people. So I have been, anyone asking me for any signs, I've been trying to go to their house personally so that they can meet me and we talk. And they can ask me any questions that they have. And so I like to do that. That's what I do at my normal job anyway, go to people's house that I don't even know and start a conversation. So thank you very much for coming today.
Well, I hope we covered some of your burning questions that you have for Sergeant Clifford. And just wanted to remind you that there's going to be time for a meet and greet after this. It's going to hang around, so try to hang around, and Rick's going to come up and wrap up for us.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you were going to ask if you were going to take 2 questions or 1, or do you want it to just be done and we come in? It sounds like that's where we're at.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do to get time for
Let's go
audience.
ahead and call it, and then if you want to hang around.
I'll hang around.
Yeah. If you want to hang around and talk to Sergeant Clifford, that's what I hear he likes to do best. So thank you again for all of you. Big distance and stuff. Yeah.